Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and we have a doozy of a show for you this week. My guest this week is Rachel Maine. Rachel is a sex and relationships coach. We talk about how to get more of what you want, how to know what it is that you really do want versus what you might think you want. Dudes getting upset at their partners for masturbating and using sex toys. Women getting upset at their partners for watching porn. Rachel talks about how she got into all this, how she got into coaching. Spoiler alert, it's a moving, profound, awesome fucking story. And we also are going to dip our toes in the Roe versus Wade decision. So buckle up, get excited, because this is my conversation with Rachel Maine.
This week's conversation.
Rachel Maine, welcome to Sex Party. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Dustin.
Yeah. For the people that are in the audience that don't know who you are, they've never heard your voice, they've never seen you before. Can you talk a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone. I'm Rachel Maine, and I am a sex and relationship coach. I have a background in sex therapy, and when COVID hit, had to transfer over to teletherapy, which really opened a lot of doors for me and realizing that I can really help people all over the world, not just the people that were local to me. And so I, in the last 2 years, transitioned into running my own successful online coaching business for people that are really wanting more adventure and connection and pleasure in their life. And I feel like it's amazing because I can bring some of those therapy skills that I have from my background without it feeling very buttoned up, like clinical type of feel. You know what I mean? If any of you have ever been to therapy, you know what I'm talking about. So I always say, I'm not like one of those regular therapists. I'm a cool therapist. That's it's a Mean Girls reference there for anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I work with men, I work with women, I work with couples, again, pretty much anybody that's wanting more pleasure and connection in their life.
And I would imagine the majority of the people you work with are women, probably, because, you know.
Yeah, majority are women. I also have been with a company called Pure Romance, which is a direct sales company for women's sexual empowerment and education and entertainment of it. And so through that, historically, that is a company that only, services women, female identified people. And so I've been with them for 8 years. And so through that, most of my contact is with women. Although when I started in private practice sex therapy, that's really what opened the door for me for working with men and couples, and now have brought that offering into my coaching practice as well.
Cool. So is it safe to say that, I mean, and I'm not like saying like COVID was a good thing, right? But for a lot of people benefited because they were able to adapt. They found that silver lining and they're like, oh shit, my business was local. Now, like, the telehealth thing is more accepted. It's, it's easier. The technology's better. So was it safe to say that your sex, wellness business actually like excelled because of COVID? Because that's great if that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from, the consumer and client side of this is that when COVID hit, we were all essentially quarantined with our partners, with our loved ones, right? And so that could have went one of two ways. Either that was really great for you and you had, amazing adventurous connections with one another and a lot of fun, or you were, hardly from fucking murdering each other, right? Like there was two very like white and black areas to that. And so when COVID hit, a lot of people were turning either to, the product side of my offering is wanting more sex products, lubricants and toys and bondage and things like that to add more play to their life. And then I think a lot of people, because we were at home and had time, a lot of people were starting to seek out help in their sex lives, realizing that, very blatantly staring them in the face that this was something that they wanted to work on or make better. And so to have online programs available for people to be able to, again, do virtual work with people and not just have it to be in person, I think was amazing for our world.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, what did you see more of in your practice and your experience? Was it more of we're stuck together, this fucking blows, or was it more of oh, this is great?
Well, I could say personally, it was great.
Mm-hmm.
But for Yeah, I would say for most of my people that I was working with at this time, it was stressful. It was very stressful. I mean, this really shook up people's lives, especially for people that were working regular 9 to 5 jobs. Now you're home all the time with your significant other, throw kids into the mix of that and animals, pets and stuff. It's like, it's a lot. And so for a lot of people, if there's one partner in the relationship that had a higher sex drive than the other, then they're probably anticipating, oh, we're home more, we have more time, sex is going to happen more. So when that didn't happen, then that's when shit hits the fan, right? Like, what do we even do from here? Now time is not an excuse for us to not be having sex.
Mm, yeah, and all the fucking lovely guilt and inside fucking doubt voice, in your brain playing on that too. What a mess. So did you see a lot of couples break up and sever the relationship because of these issues, or was it something that people were like, really trying to work through?
Yeah, I would say the lighter side of that, definitely trying to work through. For most people, they had been working with me in a therapy. At this time, I was still in a therapy role, so a lot of I didn't see a lot of separation, if I'm being honest. I think that at least with the couples that I was working with, and a lot of people that I worked with at this time too weren't in relationships. They were doing a lot of self work to manifest and become the partner that they desired to be, showing up for themselves in future relationships. So, yeah, I would say I didn't really see a lot of splitting during that time.
Yeah, and then like the sex toy sales from that side of it just fucking exploded. Like what are we talking?
Literally,
Like
I
what
mean,
percentage? Like a
yeah,
1,000%, 20,
yeah.
like
So company wide, we were up over 100%. And that was with, so many of us not being able to do in home stuff, which is the majority of our business. But again, people had nothing else to do. So we were able to switch businesses to be completely online. So doing, quote unquote parties inside Facebook groups and sex education through Facebook groups, and Zoom became a really big thing, Zoom parties and stuff like that. So yeah, product sales skyrocketed, parties skyrocketed. People, again, they needed fun in their lives, and pure romance parties are fun. So, what the downside of it was coming out of COVID, then when everything started opening back up, now it was like we went from being grounded for so long to now we have our freedom back. And so I'm still nervous to see people in person. And then I also don't want to be stuck on my device forever and ever like I had been for the last 2 years. So even still, we're feeling that a bit from the products sales side. Yeah, it's quite interesting in the world right now.
So okay, let's jump back for a second. So immediately, like right away, right? Everybody inside, and then the sales of like just the regular, I would say, not that they're boring or anything, but like run of the mill normal sex toys, dildos, vibrators, rabbit type stuff, right? Bullets, all those things like that people would normally use, whatever. Those probably shot up. And then was it more of the wilder shit, or was it everything at once, or how?
Literally everything. I mean, not even just sex toys, lubricants. We have a bath and beauty line, massage line, lingerie, like everything across the board shot up. Yeah, it was quite incredible at the time, sales wise for sure.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there was a moment where it was like, okay, all this stuff is flying off the shelves, but now like this obscure, like bondage, gag ball, like sort of stuff is that now that's going too. Was there a moment like that where people were like, let's try everything. Let's try.
Yeah, I think for some people, I think there were the certain people in the population that looked at this as an opportune time, again, having that extra time on their hands to try new things sexually. And again, I think for some people, it was like they had the time to finally have those conversations with each other, maybe share fantasies with each other for the first time. So it was, yeah, I think it just looked different. And for some people, there was no changes made sexually. It's like,
Yeah.
I think it really is a different type of person that in a time like that, like wants to show up for their sexuality in a time that essentially shit hit the fan for the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. And then you said now, like, well, more so now, like with everything sort of settling, whatever the fuck it is that we're doing, right? It's sort of calming. So then sales is like return to normal, or they just went like no one's using sex toys, everybody's out in fucking Hornyville trying to get fucked, or what? Well, like what's happening?
Yeah, I would say a normal to a little bit less than normal is what we're seeing right now. I think that COVID was also a time for people to really do a lot of self-discovery as well. So from the people that work for Puromans, from that side of things. And so I think a lot of people just realized that maybe they were onto something bigger and better. Maybe they were now look at their business a lot differently in the way that they want to offer product and information to people. So yeah, it's very different. And one thing I love about this business is that there's so many ways that you can go about it. For instance, for myself, obviously I don't just do Puromans. I also offer the sex and relationship coaching as well. And so for me, it's something so much more than just selling somebody a product.
Yeah, and that's a perfect place for us to kind of dive in more into the coaching side of things, because it's cool because you can draw from both. You get what people are buying literally because you can see,
Mm-hmm.
and you work in that side, but also you're a coach, so you kind of you see firsthand like what people are going through and shit. So was there? I mean, we talked a little bit about people staying together, people working through it, people breaking up, people being fucking bored and like, stuck together, a high demand partner chasing someone around, all of those things. But did you see anything along the lines of like, oh, wow, there's this collectively shared, Marvel universe trauma that just happened, right? And people realizing, shit, like I have one life to live. This is crazy. And then they want to break out of their shells and become someone different or add new things. Did you see a lot of that?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I refer to that almost as like a sexual awakening. And I think that the majority of people go through this at some point in their life. I'm not sure if I can really put a finger on what age around that would happen, but I do feel that majority of people go through this. And so again, with people having so much free time on their hands, if they're doing a lot of self-reflection, this may have came up for them. Whether or not they reached out right there in the middle of COVID, or maybe if it took them some time, that could also be. But again, for most people that are coming into this space, they are experiencing some sort of challenge in their sexual life, and they're at a point to where they're ready to take action. For so long they've stirred on it, whether it be erectile dysfunction, low desire, inability to orgasm, any of that stuff. And now they're ready to show up for themselves.
Yeah. And this was sort of like the match that lit all that, have you seen, anything that's really made you like, wow, that's crazy. Like, okay, this person was, straight laced and married or whatever. And now they're like, going to sex parties or having, they're all of a sudden, maybe they, are experimenting with different partners. Cause on this show, right. Like we've talked about with the previous guests, the idea that this was an awakening, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it made people kind of realize like, this is it, this is all we get. And if it's sort of if this is happening and I'm stuck in this mode, I want to get out of it. So I'm just wondering if anything shocked you.
It's quite difficult to shock somebody in this field, if I'm being honest. I get asked
That's
that all
why
the
I'm
time.
asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the most shocking? What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen? And it's like, when you're in this field, you're in this field for a reason. It's because you're offering a non-judgmental lens for people. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so I think what you're getting at is really like, where did I see any drastic changes in people?
Yeah.
And sure, but a drastic change for somebody could be going from having sex once a month to having sex 3 times a week. that's a drastic change for somebody, right? Or going from not being able to orgasm during sex with a partner to consistently orgasming through sex with a partner. So I would say that those would be the major changes that I've seen. But anybody that was like, these 0 to hero type of stories, not really, nothing that comes to mind for me.
Well, the reason I ask, and I'm glad that you put it that way, right? Because that's what we do here. We sort of ask these stupid questions, and then we get a really thoughtful, intellectual, amazing answer. And I'm really glad that you answered it that way, because that's myself and like, everything that we're pushing on in this show is a non-judgment thing. I think everybody is 0 to hero. I think I want to hear more of that, because I think that shit is like the real empowering stuff. Somebody who couldn't fantasize about what they wanted to because of whatever, and now they are. To me, that's fucking rock star shit. And you're right, it can seem small but it's not. It's giant. It doesn't matter what it is. So that's why I was asking that, and I'm really glad that that you answered it that way, because to be a host, at least in the way that I want to do this show, you got to ask some fucking dumb basic questions to get the good answers, right? So thank you very, very much. What are some things that were difficult for you being a sex and relationships coach during this time?
So it was really a transitional period for me. So before COVID, I was working in private practice in the sex therapist role. When COVID hit, I was still in the therapist role for about, I would say, 6-ish months. When did COVID even start? March?
I don't know. What day is it?
I'm thinking here in Michigan times like March. And so in October is when I ended up leaving the practice. So a little bit over 6 months. And so that was the time then I transitioned into coaching, to where now I'm all on my own. I have to market myself. I'm, literally just selling myself. I don't have people being fed to me through Psychology Today and that sort of stuff. And I think also around this time, coaching was from being seen as switching from therapist to coach, right? People had their own judgments and thoughts around that. I think a lot of times people don't take coaches as seriously. People want to know about educational backgrounds and certifications and all that. But what I find is that the more that I can grow as a coach, the more that I involve myself in improve my own marriage and my own sex life, and learn the skills that I want to learn, whether it comes to, somatic work or trauma certifications, or going down the realm of sacred sexuality with chakras and crystals and yoni eggs and all of that, right? Like, as I expand, it allows me to help my clients expand. And so that's been one of the most exciting things about this, is that I can, now being in the coaching aspect, I have full range essentially to do any and whatever I want with coaching. And it feels so freeing to be able to do those things and be able to offer that type of empowerment to other people that I work with when it comes to their relationships. If you can think it can happen for you, which I think is a really real thing and important for people to know.
Right. So with all of that being said, how long have you been doing this? And also, like, can you talk about why you're doing this work and what made you want to start it?
Yeah, great question. So I have a master's degree in social work. I'll kind of do a little bit of the longer version of this because I think it's important. But so my master's degree in social work, in that time when I was an intern in undergrad, I worked at a facility for domestic and sexual violence. And one of my roles there was a survivor's advocate. So when people were raped or assaulted sexually, they would go to a hospital, a police station, wherever. And I was the person that would meet them and be their advocate throughout that process. And so that was, for me, I saw sex in such a negative light. It brought me a lot of frustration. It brought me a lot of worry. I felt like I was kind of having to step on my own, or walk on ice, whether in my own relationship. And when I was out in public, I became scared and just all of this stuff. And so when I left that position, rather, it was time for me to move on, that still kind of stuck with me. And I went into a job that had nothing to do with sex at all. And I knew that there was something missing. I knew that I really liked this role, but I am very good. I have a gift in talking about sex with people. I'm a pretty open person. I can build rapport with people pretty quickly. And so I knew that, again, this is something I wanted to get back into, but in a much different light. So I had been going to peer romance parties for a long time. I remember having so much fun at them. And now at this point in my life, I'm working my, quote unquote, big girl job after graduate school and all this. I'm doing the damn thing and I'm so fucking bored. My life is on autopilot. I'm going to work. I'm doing the 9 to 5 thing, coming home, eating dinner, going to bed, wake up, repeat. It was terrible. And so I was bored. I knew I wasn't where I was at in my passion in life or my purpose in life. And so that's ultimately what led me to join peer romance. Was I needed the fun in my life. And this really opened the door for me to see sex and sexuality in such a new light. When I started to attend the trainings and conferences and stuff with this company, I got to hear from sex therapists and sex educators, sex counselors, which I didn't even know was a thing. And so for me, when you do a peer romance party, if for anybody that's never been, women come and they order their products confidentially with you. But it's not just women coming back and saying like, I'll take this, I'll take this. They're asking for recommendations. They're sharing very personal stories with you about their sex life, and you probably just met them an hour ago. And so with that, women were asking me questions about desire, about menopause, about husbands struggling with erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, all these things. And so I wanted to be able to give back to the women that I was encountering at my parties. I wanted to not just go up and do a demonstration and sell them a product, because there's a huge fucking difference behind selling somebody a cream that is somebody that's struggling with the desire versus doing the work and coaching and getting down to the root of why it is that they're experiencing low desire. Same thing if I use a male example, right? It's one thing to just prescribe somebody Viagra for ED, but until you can get down to the root cause of the ED, like that's where they're going to see long-term change. I don't want to be the person that just gives you a product and sends you on the way. Like I want to have that long-term change and growth for you. And so that's what led me to go back to school. That's how I went and got my certificate in sex therapy and sex education. After that, a year later, hired my own sex coach as a business coach. And so that led me to now working with Sex and Love Co. I'm partnered with a few practices here in Michigan. And so it all transpired from there, starting in a negative light. When it came to sex, seeing the light and seeing what was available out there, and now just continuing to grow on that and just follow wherever the universe keeps inspiring me to go. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, Rachel, that's like insanely profound. Okay. Like that's such a fucking, amazing, story, because you started in the fucking ugliest place ever, right? Where like sex was literally weaponized and used to harm. And you went through that and got burnt out on it and scared, and it was affecting your life, and you're looking around in the grocery store and walking home at night, and all of those things, all those fucking horrible things.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been easy for any human being to let that permeate into your thoughts of like, oh, sex sucks, it hurts people, and I'm done and whatever. But you stepped away from it. You felt a connection to it still. And then when you were having those conversations with women that were deep and on the same sort of emotional level as maybe some of the traumatic stuff, right? It was helping through sex. You got re-energized by it and turned a negative into a positive. I mean, that's fucking amazing. That's like some real rock star shit.
Thank
I
you.
really, really appreciate you sharing that. I just think that people, when they can, pleasure and orgasms and all of these things, when they can couple that with the larger power that comes with sex, I just think that's the ticket, right? That's where you really have life-changing things happen. And that's just such a fucking great example. So thank you so much for sharing that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about it. It's just it's huge, right? Especially now with all of the fucking psycho shit that's happening in the world. And this idea that you know, every episode I do, we get more into it, you know, at on some level, and it's like we're we're continually just destroying positivity around sex, like day in and day out. You know, we're like trashing women, and it's just nonstop. I mean, it just keeps getting worse. So maybe in light of recent events, obviously Roe v. Wade was overturned. How are you feeling about that as a woman, as a sex educator, coach, someone who sex is your business? How do you feel about it unedited, and what are you like? What do we do about it?
Yeah. Like, how much time do we have?
Go for it.
Like, fucking pissed. Like, just fucking pissed, period. When I got the news that day and saw it on social media and friends calling and checking in and stuff, like, I cried all day. I cried for myself. I cried for my sister. I cried for my niece who just turned 11. I cried for all of the women in the world that this option has been taken away from them. And for them to even say that, oh, it's, you know, it's going to be up to the states. Still, it is nobody else's fucking decision what I get to do with my body, what anybody else in my life gets to do with my body, with their body. I think it's just, I cannot truly believe that this is the world that we live in. Like, it takes me back to watching fucking Handmaid's Tale. Like, I literally feel like that's the world that's the direction that we're heading. And it's mind boggling to me. So I think that as women, if you are somebody that supports pro-choice, obviously the people that are pro-life supporters, not fucking talking to you right now. Sorry, not sorry, but people that are pro-choice, like we have to band together. There are petitions out there that you can sign locally. You can sign up to be a poll worker in your community. You can voice your concerns. You can share the memes. You can talk to friends about this. You can offer support to one another. If you have a friend that is in a situation right now where they're considering abortion, you know, be that safe beacon of for them and a support to them. Offer a non-judgmental space. And sometimes for people, it's just a matter of listening. We don't always need for, you know, to give suggestions or give solutions right away. For some time, it is just listening and allowing people to be heard. So it's very, very, very upsetting. I don't want to go too down into the rabbit hole because honestly, it does affect my mental health pretty deeply. And I feel like when I choose to be engaged in a conversation surrounding this, I literally go through mental preparation to where I know I don't have a day of clients, you know, arrested ahead of me. So I can share what's good for them. But yeah, pissed is, I would say, an understatement.
Yeah, well, no, and I just wanted to get you on record while I have you while this is happening, you know. So, and we don't have to stay on it or whatever. I just want to make sure that when I have, you know, intelligent guests that this is their field, that they have time to say what they want to say, how they feel, give advice. I mean, everyone's sort of now turning to like the midterms and all of those things. And that's terrifying. So, I mean, you know, but
Literally.
as with anything, like with the pandemic, right? It was like this huge fucking deadly hand in the sky. Like people found a way. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sort of a dark optimist. And, you know, I think that, you know, jackasses tend to really overplay their hand, and that always presents a little opportunity to, and I think that here we are. So, but what the fuck do I know? Okay. So let's transition away from that, and get back into some more practical day-to-day things. When I was combing over your Instagram, there was a lot of really cool shit. There was a lot of fucking fun reels. You were someone who is empowered in your own skin and your own thoughts and your own way that you do things. Have you always been empowered that way? Is it something that took training to like, you had to really sort of build up your own confidence. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then how people can maybe do that for themselves?
Yeah, God, such a good question. So yeah, definitely have not always been this way. But when it comes to self-confidence or even sexual confidence, in 2013-ish, yeah, something circa 2013, I was in a relationship and to where we were living together, and he came home one day and basically said that he was leaving. He was going to move in with his dad, and I was completely blindsided. I'll never forget that day. I have been a woman that has always been a serial monogamous dater. I've always been in long-term relationships. And so for me, this was the first time in my life that I was ever alone, and essentially forced to be alone. Right. And so while in the moment I thought, oh my God, like what am I going to do from here? I feel so grateful that I was in a position that I didn't have to leave that apartment financially. I was still able to support me. Seen through parental choices, I have always been the person that has never wanted to depend fully on somebody else. So I think I set myself up really good in that area. But sexually, I was hurt in that relationship. Even so, it was not the sex that I desire. It was no crazy, amazing sex life by any means. And so for me, this is the time that I turn to more to self-pleasure, self-love, self-development, self-worth. I mean, all of the things. I started getting back into the gym. I started loving myself. I started having more time with friendships and family and the people that, loved me and wanted to love me. And so going down the self-pleasure journey for me was really the start. Figuring out who I was as a person, who I wanted to show up as in relationships, and the type of partners that I wanted to have. This ultimately left me to reconnecting with somebody that I went to high school with. That is now my husband. We've been married for 4 years, and throughout this, and having his support and having open conversations around sex and how we want to be sexually and where we want to go sexually has been such a blessing for us. And then, of course, again, being in this field, I feel like I know more than the average person when it comes to sex and what's really available out there. So after finishing up, school for sex therapy, I remember coming home and telling him, like, holy shit, like there's still so much that I don't know. Like there's still so much out there for me to explore. And I love that I'm in this work. And I'm, of course, everybody, when they ask if I'm married, they're like, oh, your husband must love you. I'm like, you're damn fucking right. He loves me. Like, we get to do some fun, freaky shit together. And so yeah, it's been a ride for sure. But I tell any woman that I work with, it has to start with you. You cannot depend on anybody else. We have to take responsibility for our own pleasure and the things that we want in life. And so if you're wanting more for yourself, whether that be sexually or something else, you have to be ready and willing to step up and do the work. And it's not always easy. Is sex work and this type of coaching fun? Yeah, hell yeah, it's fun. Is it also very, very hard and emotional, and you're breaking through years and years and years of sexual shame? Yep, it's that too. So it is not for the faint of heart by any means.
Right. I mean, and is there if you were to give like some practical advice, right? What's like step one for them to start on a journey to be more empowered, more sexual, put themselves out there, whatever it is that they feel comfortable, they want to do? Is it like get uncomfortable, or is it to have a chat with yourself to like whatever? I mean, what's the practical?
Good question. I'd like to give two options, really. So for someone that feels like, when I said like the years and years of sexual shame. So if you came from a family or an environment or community to where you were raised in a container to where sex was not talked about, sex was shamed, masturbation was shamed, you're bad if you do this, it's dirty or whore, like any of that type of culture, then an exercise that I take people through is called creating their sex timeline. And so these are questions that you can begin to ask yourself about: what do you remember learning about the first time, or what do you remember learning when you learned about sex? Who was it that taught you about it? How did you learn about it? How was it presented to you? Same question around self-pleasure and masturbation. How do you remember learning about your clitoris or your penis as a pleasure organ? What do you remember about the last time you had sex, right? And so really thinking back to the early stages of your life and how sex was presented to you has so much to do with the sexual person that we are today. So if someone wanted to start on that route, I think that's a great place. The second, and I would say more so shorter route to that, would be simply asking yourself, what do you want? And it seems like such a simple question, but when you ask somebody, what do you want? So many people feel like, oh shit, like I don't know. Like I've never been asked that. Or it's, ooh, I can't say this. I can't say that I want this because I'll get made fun of. I can't say that I want this because I'll be, deemed as greedy or slutty or whatever it is. And so really getting very clear with yourself is what is it that you want sexually? What is it that you want in your relationship? What is it that you want from a partner? What expectations do you hold yourself to? What truly do you want? And from there, look at that list, look at those things that you want, and what are the things that you can start giving to yourself? That's where you get to that self-love piece. If you want to be having more orgasms, start giving yourself more orgasms. If you're not sure how to do that, that's where a coach comes in or programs come in. There are people out there that can help you with this. But I think, step 1A is looking at your past to what got you here. Step 1B is going to be that question. What is it that you want?
Yeah. And I think that's important. Let's stay on it for a second. Like when someone's asking, what do I want? Again, it's almost like the question that we're starting to kind of like beat up on this show is like, how are you doing? It's a fucking loaded question. And it's like a matrix level thing. How do people know the answer to that question?
I think that you just know. I mean, I think, and when it comes to sex, I think that's the easiest thing I can speak on. But when it comes to sex, the things that I hear often are, I want more pleasure. I want more connection. I want to be able to communicate better. I want to want sex more. Right. So people that are coming and stepping up to do this type of work, they likely know. They likely know what it is at least that they're working towards or want to have more of. But I think challenging yourself a bit to get a little bit clearer on that. And if you wanted to do this from a whole life perspective and scope, what kind of car do you want to be driving? What do you want your house to look like? How do you want to be dressing? How do you want to look? What foods do you want to be eating? What does your exercise look like? Right? You can go down many routes with this, but sexually speaking, what do you want for your sex life? What do you want your pleasure to look like?
Right. Do you like Fruity Pebbles or is it the chocolate kind? Like, what's up? Yeah. They're all
right. Like
they're all very important questions. Yeah, and I think people should also realize that can change. Right? Like what you want can fucking change. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's really difficult for people because we do come up with what we want our apartments to look like. We do come up with what we want our partners to look like, even what our dinners look like, really subtle things that are serious to us. And then when those things don't feel okay or right or perfect and we're not aligned with it, right? We question the feeling of not feeling aligned instead of questioning what it is that's making us feel off. And so how do people accept when change comes knocking, right? I think that's a question that I would ask you because I think it happens and we really push against it. We're really terrified of what the hell is this? Why am I not getting off to the same kind of porn? Whatever, something must be fucking wrong with me. And before we get there, right? Something's wrong with me. I fucking suck. My genitals are fucking broken. I'm an idiot. Now I'm already down the hole. Before people go down that hole, is there a way for them to just accept and chat with themselves about maybe the things they're wanting are changing?
Yeah. And I think the first step is for me, as the guest on here, is to like normalize that change is going to happen. Change, especially sexually, usually happens about every 6 months. For some people, if you think about erotic blueprints, you bring in a shapeshifter blueprint, they can change from hour to hour, day to day. And that can be very frustrating for a lot of people, and it can be frustrating for their partners. So your sexual desires are constantly changing. And so I think that if you're able to do some deep breaths, reset your nervous system, calm yourself down a little bit, regulate yourself, and really look at this as change, like seeing change as a good thing, seeing change as a way for you to grow and evolve as a sexual person, not going down the rabbit hole of, oh, fuck, now there's something wrong with me. And really, and to your question, if I can circle back for a moment, another great tool for those people that don't know what it is that they want, or even so here where your desires are changing. For a lot of people, that comes from learning about new things. Let's say for edging, I had a podcast episode myself about edging a couple months ago. The amount of people, the outpour of people that responded to that had no idea what edging was and never even thought to try that. Right now, someone just learned about this and they try it and they're like, holy fuck, that is mind blowing. I want more of this. Boom, your desires just changed, right? You just learned a new skill and something that you want to have more of sexually in your life. And so there's a ton of, if you've ever heard of a want, will, won't list or a yes, no, maybe list, there are tons of those out there available. If you go to my website, rachelmaine.com, I have one as a free download on there. And this is essentially a list of mild to wild, a lot of sexual acts, everything from kissing to touching to toy use to mutual masturbation. I mean, everything. And you get to go through this list both as a giver and a receiver. What are the things that you want to do? What will you do? And what won't you do? You do that, your partner does that, and you come together and you essentially have this manifest for each other. It's like your sexual blueprint and of all of the wants and the needs that you have in your life and for your partner.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And, for me, just like from my own personal, like I just, it's always some weird fucking thing, right? Like I'm like, okay, one day it's like something really common for me. Like I'm on Pornhub looking at, brunettes with, British accents or whatever it is. And then it's like, wait a minute, why am I, 4 pages deep into like a shoplifting fetish? Like it just comes out of nowhere, right? Or like some fucking weirdo like thing where I'm like really into the story or God knows what. There's some disgusting shit in there. And I'm just like, okay with it. Like, I'm just, okay, I'm gross, like whatever. And I accept that. And I think it's a great thing and whatever. That's me. But
And
I
you're
think
not gross.
no, I know. I love to like really blast that out there because, I think people hopefully are listening to this show and they're like, what the fuck? I'm not that strange. So I must be okay. But I'm okay with it. If someone were to see, and I've had partners in the past, shame me for being too weird or out there or too much. That's the one I get a lot is you're too much. Okay, cool. I love being weird and gross and too much. I accept that. And I think everyone should try to be weird and gross and too much. Especially with their sexual desires. Cause you gotta fucking pull from all over the place. That being said, I think it's important for people to realize that it is sort of like a hunger, right? That changes. One day you might be one way, and the next day you're like, fuck, like, let's try this, And so, can you talk just a tiny bit more about normalizing that and feeling okay about that?
God, yeah. It is completely normal to, again, for your sexual desires to be fluid and changing. And one day you might be into it, when the next day you might not be. Same thing when it comes to desire. One day you might be feeling really turned on. The next day, sex isn't even on your mind. And that can be frustrating, both as the person going through it and being that person's partner. But I think that the more you can get comfortable in communicating sexually and getting comfortable with asking for what it is or voicing what it is that you don't want. Even myself, I go through this. There are times where my husband is initiating and I'm like, I'm not feeling it, right? Maybe my stomach is upset, maybe I'm just really tired for whatever reason. And there are times that then, maybe sex doesn't happen, or I should say intimacy, because obviously it doesn't always have to be sex, but there are other times that, like, you know what, I'm going to pleasure you today. So why don't you you're obviously turned on. Why don't you sit back and relax? Like, I got this from here. And then that's fine. Just he's receiving that pleasure. I'm still receiving pleasure in that moment by being able to give him pleasure. But when you take orgasm off the table, when you take penetrative sex off the table, and you expand your horizon and you expand your knowledge and definition on what sex is, oh my God, that changes the game so much, so much. Sex really can start from a moment that a sex comes through, or a look across the room, or you're kissing, right? And like that can be sex for people. It doesn't have to be penis and vagina type shit. There's so much more than that.
See, and you just hit on another zinger, okay? Like, something just fucking so spectacular right there, and I love it. So we're going to push in a little bit, but like, orgasms are great. Everyone wants to fucking have an orgasm. Everyone wants to come and fucking be crazy and all the things, and those are great. But this idea that to take orgasm off the table, that is a fucking superpower.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, what goes with it is all the goddamn pressure of having a fucking orgasm, making it this goal-oriented thing. When you're just in it for the experience, like, if you can chat about that a little bit, I think that would really help a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting to me, because for women, we have to be thinking about orgasm to orgasm, right? Whereas men need to be not thinking about orgasm or orgasm too fast. So it's such a weird dynamic when it comes to this. But yes, when you take orgasm off the table, you said it exactly correct. That takes the pressure off, but it also allows for more intimate connection to happen. If you're not, okay, so let's think of a man that actually knows where the clitoris is and knows that their partner likes where clitoral stimulation takes place. And let's say in the sexual encounter that they're immediately going directly to the clitoris to get her to orgasm, right? Like, what? Yeah, that's great. I got to orgasm, but what's the fun in that? Like, where is the journey? And that's really what, when it comes to sex coaching and sexual confidence work and stuff, it's like taking people, first off, making people realize that there is a journey to be taken, and how to do that, how to successfully do that, right? How to bring in toys and different devices, or crops and feathers and textures and all of this, like how to make this a more enjoyable, well-rounded experience. And I tell people all the time, if you're measuring your level of success of your relationship based on how often sex is happening, you're setting yourself up for failure. We have to change the lens to be thinking how much intimacy is happening. Cuddling on the couch, that is the number one thing. That is the number one trait of people that are in long-lasting relationships is literally cuddling, like that affectionate time where sex is actually not happening, but that intimacy is happening. It's crazy to me. And it's, so often we don't do those things. We don't do the cuddling, or we are scared to cuddle with our partner because we think that there's expectation that it's going to lead to sex,
Yeah. I mean, and some people just like hate to cuddle because it's like a fucking, they feel like, oh, this makes me weak or something. There's that side of it too, especially for like dudes, you know what I mean? Um, yeah, that's a very interesting, like, double-edged kind of a thing too.
Yeah.
Another thing that I did notice on your Instagram, which everyone should go check out. Again, it's good stuff and it's fun. It is this idea. It comes up in a couple of different pieces of content, a couple different reels that you have, I think, and it was like this idea that your partner, like, not letting you use toys or getting mad at you when you're masturbating, right? This is something we need to, like, let's bang this one out, right? No pun intended, but like, let's fucking crash this thing, because I hate this. Like, dudes, I would imagine it's primarily dudes who are like getting upset at their wife or their girlfriend or girlfriends or whomever, right? Whatever dynamic that is, for masturbating, right, on their own or during sex or using toys. Like, take this one and let's just like Let's
Yeah.
fucking strangle it.
It is sad. And the equivalent of this from, male female perspective is that women are getting mad at men for watching porn for masturbation, right? Like, look at porn as a sex toy essentially. And then if you're getting upset that your partner's not letting you or wanting you to use a sex toy, you can't be on the other end, like shaming them for watching porn, right? It goes both ways. But historically, what I come across the most is that they are scared, they're skeptical, they're anxious about their women using toys. And, so often in the education, it's because they see the toy as the enemy. They see the toy as replacing them. For some people, they get a little self-conscious about it because maybe if it's just a toy that's phallic shaped, maybe it's bigger than them. And now they think, oh, they're not big enough to please their partner, or all of these things, right? They go down this mental rabbit hole of not being good enough. But when you can really change your lens to look at toys as your teammate and just another tool in the bedroom, it's like, you don't go to Baskin Robbins and get vanilla ice cream every time, right? You don't go to Dairy Queen and get just a vanilla ice cream cone every single time. Sometimes you want to go to Dairy Queen and you want a fucking banana split blizzard. And sometimes you want a s'mores blizzard and a Snickers blizzard. And sometimes you just want a milkshake. And sometimes you want sprinkles and sometimes you don't, right? It's the same thing with your sex life. If we're doing the same damn thing every single time, this penis and vagina missionary type sex every single time, you're going to get bored. And so when you can look at toys and blindfolds and creams and lubricants and all of these things to be seen as your teammates and ways of expanding your sexual horizon, my God, that's benefiting both people. That's benefiting both people to be able to be the one that's holding that toy and giving the pleasure, or my God, to see your partner in her own sexual confidence to be masturbating in front of you with her toy. How fucking hot is that, right? And it's only going to be hot when you can look at it through that lens, not like, oh shit, this is bothering me. She shouldn't be doing this. Like, shame on you for shaming her.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Love that. Love that shit. And also, we should add, like, if you're going to Baskin Robbins with someone, it doesn't matter who it is, okay? If you're going to Baskin Robbins with someone and you look over and their order is a cup or a cone and a vanilla ice cream with no toppings, that person's a fucking sociopath in the worst way possible. That's the worst fucking scenario to be. Get the fuck away from that person. And the same way you would get the fuck away from someone who is bashing you for masturbating, bashing you for using a sex toy. Fuck them, right?
It is such a trait of insecurity, sadly. And so, there have been plenty of people that I've worked with in my time where I'm working with the person that has a problem with this, right? And so there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way to change this. It's really just a matter of you making the decision that this can be a good thing, and asking your partner and perhaps exploring together on how this can be a good thing. Same example if it's porn and now a woman is shaming her man for watching porn to get off. Can you watch porn together and make it a together thing to help normalize porn in the relationship? It's all the same, right? We all, again, same thing with that. Women are like, oh my gosh, what is he watching? Does he think she's hotter than me, right? Well, we are going down this rabbit hole. So it goes both ways. I'm not just out here trying to bash men for not letting their ladies use toys. It's
right.
It's all the things.
Does he have a shoplifting fetish? What the fuck's happening? Okay, so to close this episode out, where everybody is sort of at mentally in terms of, in a general sense, with all of the madness that's happening, left, right, center, upside down, everywhere. With some of the stuff we talked about earlier, but also like you are really dialed in and you have clients and you're seeing what people are buying, all of your data. If we just pool all that together, right? Can you give like one piece of advice to women or to everyone, right? Doesn't matter. That they can take with them out of this episode and maybe feel a little bit better or hopeful about things that are happening and moving forward with it.
Yeah. For sure. I think just going back to your own self-pleasure, like I said, after that breakup, that's ultimately where my journey on this really started. And I think for anybody listening, that is always the place to start, is with self. So whether it's getting clear on what it is that you want in life, whether it's bringing more self-pleasure into your life, if it's something sexually that you want to change, almost 99% of the time, does it have to start with you making changes in yourself? Again, if you're wanting more orgasms, if you're wanting more connection, if you're wanting more understanding, desire, all of that begins within. And so taking the time to bring more self-pleasure into your life, that doesn't necessarily have to be sexually, but I'm definitely a fan of an orgasm a day keeps the doctor away. And our sex care really is a form of self-care. There's so many benefits that come along with us physically and mentally, emotionally, when pleasure and orgasm is taking place on a daily basis. So please orgasm every day. If you think you're masturbating too much, you're not. It's okay. Your penis is not going to fall off. Your clit is not going to become desensitized. You're going to be just fine. So do more.
Yes, do fucking more. Rachel Maine, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you, turn over all their cash into wisdom?
Yeah, thank you so much. You mentioned on Instagram. So I'm at the Rachel Maine on Instagram. There's an underscore between the and after Rachel. Pretty easy to find. My DMs are always open. I love chatting with people. And yeah, as you said, it's a pretty fun place to be. I take pride in my creativity around reels and things like that. And then aside from that, if you're interested in coaching, you can definitely message me on Instagram, or if you wanted to check out the programs and offerings that I have, it's rachelmaine.com, and Maine is Maine, just like the state.
Amazing. I will make sure we link everything below in the show notes. So thank you so much for being my guest this week. This is fucking great. You're a fucking rock star. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll have you back if you'll come back.
Yes, they always come back. Thank you so much, Dustin, for having me. I appreciate this. This has been super fun.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. You're great. Thank you so much. We will talk soon for sure. Big thank you to Rachel Maine for being my guest on Sex Party this week. Thank you so much. You guys go check out her Instagram. It's good content, I'm telling you. If you guys are loving the content here on Sex Party and would like to show your appreciation, you don't have to do these things, but if you do, it helps the show grow. If you're listening on platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, you can subscribe to the show. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. You can pass this around to your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. We doing all right? If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. You can leave a comment. Again, you don't have to do any of this, but I appreciate it greatly. I'm planning all sorts of insane things, and those things can't be done unless the show continues to grow. So I appreciate it very much. You guys can always reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram. And as always, I will see you back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.